We continue along with the African Ancestral Manuscript. We bring forth the understanding and the understanding and the overstanding of our ancestors, our Shepsui, Gungun, by telling their stories from our perspective. Remember, Napoleon said their history is an agreed upon lie. And our griots say, until the lion learns to speak, the tales of the hunt are going to always favorize the hunter. But when the lion learns to speak, every once in a while, the hunter will be lunch, dinner, breakfast, or whatever snack the lion wants him to be. So let's start telling our stories at the lion, and let's roar very loud. We're going to go to March 11th. 1-1, that's a symbol of very unbridled manhood, strong manhood, the warrior, Herukuti, Ogun, the one who practices the martial arts of cutting themselves from their animal and their emotions, and therefore becomes courageous beyond measure. This is the story of Yakub-Al-Mansur. Let's get this right. Let's not get this twisted. Yakub-Al-Mansur was a Moor, somebody of African origin, somebody who was blue-black. And this was in the age in which the Moors ruled over southern Europe, France, Spain, Italy, Portugal, and they ruled for 500 years, bringing civilizations and bringing Europe out of the Dark Ages, bringing things such as public baths, algebra, mathematics, civics, engineering, architecture. All those wonderful churches that become churches in Spain and Portugal were originally mosques. Let's not get it twisted. African inspired. We're going to read about Yakub-Al-Mansur from the African Ancestral Manuscript, book written by myself, Unblind Tibin, and the goal is to bring back our ancestors in our lives so that they can uplift us and show the example, guide us in all that we do. Yakub ibn Yusuf, better known as Yakub-Al-Mansur, was the most powerful of the Moorish rulers who dominated Spain for 500 years. Allahu Akbar, they would say to that. His surname, Al-Mansur, means the Invincible. He defeated all his enemies, never having lost, now get this, he never lost a single battle. Not one. Zero. Zilch. Al-Mansur's father was a black and Arab, but his mother was a pure African. So that just shows you what he's going to look like. He was a dark blue-black man. Believed to have been from Timbuktu or Senegal. Al-Mansur came to the throne after his father was killed by the Portuguese in 1184. Now remember, we were bringing Europe out of the Dark Ages, and it took the Moors, the black Moors, Africans from Timbuktu, from Mali, from Mauritania, from Morocco, to bring them out of the Dark Ages. Okay, he promised revenge for his father's death, but fighting with the Almohads, who were ousted from the throne, delayed him in Africa. After defeating the Almohads, because he was going up north, coming from the southern part of Africa, making his way to Europe, he headed for Spain to avenge his father's death and restore his dynasty to its European throne. Now remember, Africans were ruling that European throne in Spain, in Portugal, in Italy, and parts of France. They were the authentic rulers. And he raised to the European throne. Landing in Spain, he defeated the Europeans and captured all the major cities. So not only one or two, he captured all the major cities, all of them. Al-Mansur returned to Africa with 3,000 Christian captives, young women and children. So when they say that we were the first people enslaved, take it with a grain of salt. Even the term slaves come from the term Slavic, which is not an African person. Let's reflect on that. And back in those days, when we had more autonomy, more power, and we were invincible like Yakub, they were the ones who were in bondage, and we got to understand that our natural position is not slave. Even the term slave comes from Slavic. When the Christians in Spain, most of whom were white and of German descent, heard of Al-Mansur's absence to Africa, they revolted. So they wanted to take over because they knew he was undefeatable. So as soon as he left and went back to Africa, because he was African, they tried to defeat his kingdom. they revolted, capturing many of the Moorish cities, including Sils, Vera, and Beja. When Al-Mansur heard this news, he returned to Spain and defeated the Christians once again. This time, many were taken into chain groups of 50 each and later sold into Africa as, guess what? As slaves. Again, while Al-Mansur was away in Africa, the Christians mounted the largest army of that time period of over 300,000 men. That's a lot of men. And we're in the Sebek cycle, so 3 is Sebek's number, so it makes sense. To defeat Al-Mansur. Immediately upon hearing this, Mansur returned to Spain and defeated Alfonso's army once again, killing 150,000 rebel rousers, taking money, valuables, and other goods beyond calculation. When they say goods beyond calculation, that means a whole lot of loot. A whole lot of loot he took from those people who tried to take over his empire and restored himself to power. In addition to being one of the greatest military leaders in history, Al-Mansur, which means the Invincible, was a lover of the arts. So he had a fine talent and he was a refined person who not only waged war and protected his land and brought civilization, he also appreciated the arts. His reign was responsible for the building of the famous mosque in Granada and Cordova, which still stands today. So if you go to Grenada and Cordova and you're looking at the mosque that has become a church, remember it was built by your African ancestor, the Invincible Al-Mansur. Never forget that. His model was built and his life was built after the principle of undefeatable African fervor, as he was never defeated and bore himself boldly as an African king that ruled over large parts of Europe. So remember, we are and have always been the gatekeepers of great civilizations of humanity, bringing humanity out of the dark ages, bringing civilizations to people who are uncult, and making things happen so that we could be this society we are today and have all the advances we have. Think about Al-Mansur, Yakub-Al-Mansur, and remember, you yourself are also undefeatable, invincible, when you live truth. I'd like to say to you, Ashe, in the memory of our ancestor, Yakub-Al-Mansur, Allahu Akbar, God is great, Dua Winater, Ashe.